United States, the country's commitment to freedom of expression, opportunity, and the pursuit of dreams creates an environment where individuals can thrive. But the only thing that is not letting them thrive is the chaos. Shootings in the United States have become devastatingly common. But what if these tragedies aren't just individual acts of violence? What if there's a more sinister pattern beneath the surface? From Columbine to Parkland, Sandy Hook to Uvalde, the pain is undeniable. Yet the response remains consistent: thoughts, prayers, and no meaningful action. Today we unravel the hidden forces at play, forces that some say benefit from these horrors, and it's not who you'd expect. Before we get started, make sure to like and subscribe to our channel. Follow the money, the role of the NRA. At the center of this conspiracy lies the National Rifle Association, NRA. Founded in 1871, the NRA's influence over U.S. gun policy is massive. But it became painfully clear after the Columbine massacre in 1999 that something darker was brewing. Rather than curbing gun sales, the NRA doubled down, lobbying for gun rights as fear surged across the nation. The result? Gun sales skyrocketed after each school shooting. But why? Because fear sells. From 1998 to 2020, the NRA spent over $171 million on lobbying efforts. And when a school shooting occurs, they capitalize on it, promoting the idea that more guns, not fewer, will protect Americans. The more shootings, the more profits. Money alone isn't enough to guarantee control. The NRA strategically manipulates the U.S. political system, placing key figures in Congress and the Senate while influencing presidential campaigns. One of their biggest victories came in 2016 when they invested over $30 million into Donald Trump's campaign. In return, Trump vowed to safeguard the Second Amendment, cementing the NRA's power. And here's where it gets even more dangerous. The NRA thrives on a broken system, using school shootings to push an agenda that calls for armed teachers, armed guards, and even armed civilians. The constant chaos only drives more gun sales. A vicious cycle that keeps repeating. The mental impact. But school shootings are more than isolated events of gun violence. Some argue that America's deep-rooted issues, like racism and zero-tolerance policies, lay the groundwork for these tragedies. In predominantly white schools, punishment is vastly different from minority schools. Studies show that Black and Hispanic students are punished at much higher rates than their white peers. And these disparities don't just exist in discipline. They permeate the psychological fabric of America's youth. The mental health crisis among students is real. A broken system fosters resentment, hopelessness, and anger. And in a country where firearms are easily accessible, these emotions sometimes result in deadly consequences. Movies like Elephant by Gus Van Sant attempt to show the senselessness of school shootings, loosely inspired by the Columbine tragedy. But could these fictional stories be closer to reality than we think? Conspiracy theorists argue that there's a darker, more deliberate pattern at play. Every shooting results in increased fear, more gun sales, and greater influence for the NRA. This isn't just about random acts of violence. It's a well-orchestrated mechanism that feeds an industry thriving off our division and pain. Elephant captures the randomness of the violence, but misses the calculated nature of how the system responds to these tragedies. The psychological warfare. Fear is a powerful tool, and America is addicted to it. Every time a school shooting occurs, news channels flood their airwaves with horrifying images, reinforcing the idea that we are in constant danger. This fear drives up demand for firearms, with the NRA and gun manufacturers happily cashing in. The message is clear: protect yourself or become the next victim. This fear-mongering isn't accidental. Conspiracy theorists argue that it's a deliberate tactic designed by those in power to stoke fear, keeping the public reliant on firearms. After Sandy Hook in 2012, gun sales soared by 60%, proving that chaos is profitable for the gun industry and the NRA. But who really benefits from these tragedies? Gun manufacturers aren't the only ones profiting. Lobbyists, private security companies, and even mental health organizations have vested interests in maintaining the status quo. Conspiracy theorists argue that school shootings serve as a convenient distraction, allowing powerful elites to pass laws that serve corporate interests while the nation mourns. In 2018, over $2.7 billion was spent on school security, a figure tied to political donors with stakes in both firearms and private security firms. The more schools arm themselves, the greater the profit margins for these companies. The victims of school shootings aren't all treated equally. Minority students in economically disadvantaged communities are disproportionately impacted by both gun violence and systemic discrimination. Zero-tolerance policies turn schools into virtual prisons, where students of color are disciplined and criminalized at alarming rates. These conditions create a toxic environment where marginalized youth feel powerless, alienated, and, in some cases, dangerous. The conspiracy theory suggests that the U.S. government benefits from this divided society. Racism and inequality fuel frustration, creating fertile ground for violence, all while political elites profit from the fear and disarray. So why is it that, despite the horror, despite the outrage, nothing significant ever changes? Conspiracy theorists suggest that inaction isn't just political failure, it's part of a well-calculated strategy. The longer the system delays real reform, the more the NRA and its allies benefit. Each school shooting becomes another opportunity for fear to fuel profits. After the Las Vegas shooting in 2017, the deadliest mass shooting in modern U.S. history, there were loud cries for change. Yet after the media coverage faded, so did the urgency. The NRA, with its deep ties in politics, ensured that gun control remained a talking point rather than a legislative priority. The question is, why? Could it be that each delayed reform is intentional, designed to keep the cycle spinning? The aftermath of each shooting seems to play out like a script. Outrage, thoughts and prayers, and ultimately, nothing. Could this be by design? Who's really in control? As we dig deeper, we find that the truth may be hidden in plain sight. Lobbyists, powerful corporate entities, and political elites all benefit from the gun industry's stranglehold on U.S. policy. The gun lobby's influence extends far beyond the NRA. In 2020 alone, gun manufacturers reported profits exceeding $9 billion. This isn't just about the Second Amendment anymore. It's about an entire system profiting from tragedy, fear, and division. Behind closed doors, political elites and corporate entities orchestrate a careful balance of chaos and profit. By keeping the public divided and fearful, they maintain control. Conspiracy theorists suggest that while school shootings are horrific, they also serve as distractions. While the public focuses on the trauma, politicians pass legislation that quietly benefits the wealthy and powerful. It's a game of power, and the victims are merely collateral damage in a much larger scheme. While this might sound like the plot of a dystopian thriller, Hollywood has touched on similar themes. In Bowling for Columbine, Michael Moore exposed how America's obsession with guns has spiraled out of control, highlighting the role of fear in perpetuating gun sales. And Gus Van Sant's Elephant provided a haunting glimpse into the aftermath of a school shooting, showing how senseless violence is often misunderstood as random chaos rather than the result of a calculated system. But as chilling as these films are, they barely scratch the surface. The real conspiracy goes deeper, implicating those who hold the most power in America today. The truth lies not in fiction, but in the patterns we see every day, patterns we've been trained to overlook. The power play, controlling the masses through fear. At its core, this conspiracy isn't just about guns, profit, or even control of the political system. It's about power, the ultimate currency in any society. The United States, being one of the largest populations in the world, holds immense potential. Its citizens have the capacity for progress, innovation, and understanding. A nation with this much intellectual and social capital poses a threat to those in power. But what better way to suppress that potential than to keep the masses divided and reliant on those who claim to have the answers? The theory suggests that the powers at the top thrive on maintaining control over the masses, fostering a sense of dependency. By creating a perpetual state of fear, they ensure that the public will always look to them for protection, for leadership, and for solutions. This psychological manipulation, rooted in chaos and uncertainty, makes the population easier to control. The more divided the nation is, the more reliant it becomes on those who promise safety and stability, thus feeding into a cycle of false security. As long as the nation remains in a state of perpetual fear, awareness is stifled, progress is halted, and those in control can continue to feel like the lone power on the global stage. It's a masterstroke in psychological warfare, keeping the population in check, ensuring that they count on their leaders to make decisions, while the real solutions to these issues remain just out of reach. By maintaining this reliance, the powers at the top solidify their positions, preserving their grip on the future and the nation's collective mind. This isn't just about guns or school shootings. It's about a system that uses fear to feed a deeper, darker desire, the desire for unchecked power. As conspiracy theorists suggest, the more reliant a population is on its leaders, the more powerful those leaders become. And with a nation as vast and capable as the United States, maintaining that power is essential for those at the top. It's not just about control, it's about ensuring that the nation remains in their hands, dependent, divided, and ultimately under their command. What comes next is up to you. As we've seen, nothing in this world is as simple as it seems. The headlines, the tragedies, the decisions made behind closed doors, they all point to a deeper, hidden agenda. What we are shown is only the surface of a far more complex system. Behind every action, behind every decision, there's often a motive we aren't meant to see. But that doesn't mean we should stop questioning. The truth is, awareness is our greatest weapon. The more we understand that things aren't always what they appear, the more empowered we become to see beyond the distractions. In a world where power thrives on silence and complicity, it's our responsibility to dig deeper, to ask the uncomfortable questions, and to remain vigilant. Because once you see through the illusion, you start to understand. Control only exists as long as we allow it to. The real power, that lies with those who choose to wake up, see the bigger picture, and refuse to be kept in the dark. Share this video. Talk about what you've learned. Most importantly, act. Call your representatives, demand accountability, and push for reform. We can no longer afford to be pawns in a system designed to profit from our pain. It's time to disrupt the cycle, to question the narrative, and to rewrite the future. Because in the end, the most powerful weapon isn't a gun, it's the truth. Curious? Join us on this journey. Subscribe to Misstree Media, where the questions are just as intriguing as the answers. Because in a world full of mysteries, we're just getting started. Ready to unlock the truth? Hit that follow button and let's explore the unknown together.